Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So I just would like to apologize that it specifically state why we were adjourning to executive session. So I'd just like to note that we were adjourning to discuss the Halifax Teachers Association contract and vote pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A3. So my apologies for not stating that earlier. At this time, has everybody had a chance to look over the meeting minutes for the regular meeting of October 2nd?
I just had one change. On page 2, under the PTO notes, it says allocated over 1,500 for field trips. We actually allocated 12,000.
Oh my goodness.
Cost way more than $1,500 to send 600 Great.
So that,
Just change the number.
and everyone else's, the motion to accept the minutes of Kim's edit.
Motion to accept things.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Sure. Thank you for catching that.
Oh, Christine called.
Oh.
I just made a star, I just checked, so
We're like, oh.
oh, that's a lot.
Also, we have executive session minutes from October 2nd that, at this time, I would like to make a motion to approve and hold them for right now.
Second.
I mean, I would like to entertain a motion. Yeah, so I need a motion for it. So,
So moved.
okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Warrants are circulating. Okay, school committee correspondence and reports. I have a couple of little things. I gave Christine some bills that ended up in our box at town hall again. Barbara Gainer, who is the town clerk, had put this note in our mailbox that the open meeting laws have changed. There have been some changes to them. I'll pass this around if anybody's interested. There's a website address that you can go on and look at the changes. I saw as of October 6th, 2017. There have been some minor changes. So, make a note of that and go look yourself if you feel free. Also, we all received an email from a gentleman regarding this time capsule. Did everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this gentleman who apparently was in the 4th grade here at Halifax Elementary in like 1977, 78, sent out this email to all of us that they did a time capsule and put like trinkets and photographs and stuff in it and buried it like back there by the baseball field, apparently. So he didn't know if it was still there, which I don't know if anybody has that. If it is still there, he basically wanted our permission to get a couple of him and his buddies together to go back there and dig it out and turn it into like a history lesson, and had asked if we would approach, the principal and superintendent and the school committee about making it like a lesson for the 4th grade that we have in here now. And I don't know, maybe even if we did one of our own, that would be kind of cool. Came back to dug it up 30, 40 years later. Oh yeah, it's the 40th, 40 years later. So I just didn't know, I don't think we know a lot about it, so I don't know if we can really come to any sort of conclusion tonight, but.
Well, I called King before to you this afternoon, and none of us were here 40 years ago, I'm happy to say. And
I don't know.
There are some better teachers, but I don't think they've been here 40 years.
Now that I'm thinking of it, I think it sounds familiar.
Does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said it was back by the Babe Ruth field.
So,
We
yeah.
did one in the late 90s.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
We buried
What was it,
one
Mark?
in the courtyard.
But we don't know that it is Mark.
Oh.
So what we were going to do was do a little research. There's some people who are still in town who we believe were in school at that time. The police chief, for instance. So we're going to do a little bit of checking with some local people. I don't think there's anyone on staff that was here in 77 that I'm aware of. But I do know some people that are around that. So we'll do a little bit of checking and just let them know at that point. But I think it's a fun idea. But we can't just go out and start digging.
No, perfect, not.
They would be 40, right? If they were.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they would have to be, yeah, if they were going to participate in any sort of school day.
Yeah.
Any type of big copies.
But we'll get more specific about I mean, I had no idea that there was anything here. You think there's another one also?
There is one in the courtyard, yes.
Is that one
So
marked?
it's done in the- Huh?
Is that one marked?
I think that one will be easier to find.
Boy, good
Smaller
answer.
area.
Metal detector.
Yeah.
Be a big yellow machine tearing
Oh,
up
yeah,
the
maybe
whole
metal
field.
detector, maybe they put it in the metal box.
Yeah.
So I guess my only thought was it's November already, right? So we should probably, if the ground's gonna freeze,
It's going to freeze
have this
tomorrow.
conversation like, well, our ground's not going to, is it? So I don't know if this is something we should put off into the spring, or maybe we should have a conversation about it in a week once we talk to people, but I guess as a committee, if this is something that we decide to move forward with on this side, is everybody like okay with it on this side?
Yeah, so that's great.
Because I think that's why he had sent it to us originally, to make sure that we were like, yeah, exactly. All right, well then we'll keep that conversation going, and I'll shoot him an email back just to let him know that we did, that he's not forgotten.
Okay,
We can discuss it, and we'll be in touch moving forward.
I can talk with the teachers and I can reach out to Ted,
Okay,
so.
yeah. That'd be cool.
Good resource.
All right. Unfinished business. Okay, so I just wanted to give everybody an update on the SPED education, special education stabilization fund. I met with the selectmen at their last meeting, or one of their meetings, and spoke with each of them about it, and their overall opinion of it is that the town and the school have such like a good rapport and relationship and have for the last however many years, that they don't necessarily feel like it's something we should move forward with this time. I know that we had discussed it as a committee and we were kind of unsure, didn't like think it was a pressing matter, but after speaking with all of them, they pretty much think that the way that we have things laid out right now as a town seems to work for us, and we should sort of keep it that way. I did have a brief conversation with Gordon Andrews, who's the chair of the finance committee, and he had said that he'd spoken to you about it, and that he, was thrilled that the information was brought to his attention, and is hoping to have that conversation, but also recognizes that town and school have such a good relationship that, he's basically okay with it either way. So, as long as we are okay with sort of leaving things how they are at this time, I just wanted to kind of present that. I spoke with the appropriate parties. So, is there anything else you want to say?
No, Summer and I attended the selectmen's meeting, as she said, and, again, it was just an opportunity, it's information. And to Summer's point, they really feel the way they vote the budget and the history with the town is that they've always been supportive, and they really have a good relationship and are very supportive of the schools, and feel like that's how they would like to continue, so, and that was pretty unanimous, I think.
Yeah. So thank you very much for bringing.
No, I think it's good information, as I said, it's good to know your options.
Right, yeah, and moving forward, I mean, because Kim had expressed that she's spoken with many other communities, and that's not the case. They don't have that kind of relationship between the town and the school, and so the school, we're unique in that way. Yep, here. Yeah, so let's vote down. New business, we had discussed, a joint facilities position, like sharing, because Jerry is retiring the building manager, is that what you call him?
I think it's facilities director.
I'm not sure what his actual title is, but regardless, he's the guy that takes care of all the buildings in town. And there was a conversation a couple of years ago about potentially hiring somebody to oversee all of the town buildings, which included the school. And so that conversation was also had during the selectmen's meeting. And we kind of feel, and Jack Campbell, who's the chair of the municipal school building committee, had spoke pretty eloquently about the fact that like the climate has sort of changed in the school over the last couple of years. There's been personnel changes, and he feels that with the other buildings in town, it would just be too much for one person to undertake all of it. And we kind of have been doing a really good job of keeping things here, and now with the major projects that's going on with the roof and everything, that the school seems to be sustainable by itself, basically, without having that position. So it's kind of agreed by all of us, I guess, that we weren't going to move forward with that at this time. We were going to keep our people in-house in the town can keep their people. So, just wanted to update everybody on that conversation. Did I miss anything? Nope. Future agenda items, anybody have anything you want to discuss moving forward? Somebody email me, if not. Of course, standing committees. Policy, we have a meeting November 13th.
Next Monday.
Okay.
Kingston meetings.
So we'll be updated on that in December, so it should be a fun one. Negotiations are still ongoing, we just met. Yep. Had a little discussion about that. Pilgrim Area Collaborative.
So we've met twice in the time since last time, probably the Thursdays about. So we just met last Thursday also. And a couple of things, the executive director gave a personal thank you to the Halifax Elementary School for housing their PAC program here. They were very appreciative and said everything's going wonderful with that. Halifax currently has 5 students attending one of the different PAC programs. They have 120 students in all. We have 5 from Halifax, 13 in Silver Lake that go there currently. It's actually a higher enrollment than they had anticipated. And so at the meeting, the first meeting I went to, we accepted the auditor's report, which is posted on the PAC website if anybody's interested in that. There are no surplus of funds that are coming back to the districts this year. They actually had to dip into their reserves a little bit, but only for about $8,000, so it wasn't too bad. And then the last thing is that the executive director, she said she's already spoken to you, so I could say, the executive director, Maureen Gagan, is retiring next November. And so we'll be trying to fill that position. So that will be a big time. It is, yeah, absolutely. She's wonderful. She has wonderful things to say about you. She adores you. So,
Mutual.
yeah, so it's been great. I'm really enjoying it. Really. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. Sure. You can rec?
Well, I brought the wrong notebook, so I'm gonna read my scribe. Mr. Steele. What do you know? He said that they are working on the basketball season schedule. They had a dance already. They have another one for 5th and 6th graders coming up November 17th. They're letting the fireworks committee use the gym on November 18th for a craft fair. Preparing for the December 9th holidays. I didn't check these dates, so I thought
You're
they
right,
were-
December 9th.
Okay, I figured you would pipe up with whatever. December 9th holidays in Halifax. They have a big spread, a magic show, a bouncy, the scribe is right, the bouncy houses, face painting and such. And I think if he said if he thinks of anything else, he'll let us know. But that's it for now.
Thank you.
There's a lot of hums in there.
PTO?
We have just finished the book fair, which was really successful. The pickup for the Great American Fundraiser, which is the one big catalog fundraiser we do, is this Wednesday, the 8th from 3 to 6. The kids' stuff and fun books are going out on the 16th. Yes, we're putting together an apparel fundraiser because I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, the student council has decided to do a spirit day once a month. Is that correct?
Yes.
So people are looking for their Halifax spirit wear, so we're gonna jump right on
That's
that.
right, we sell stuff.
Yeah, so, be on the lookout for that, I'm trying to pull it together in time for.
What are you gonna sell? Hats?
No, we're doing short sleeve shirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodie, what else? The pajama pants, and there's another sweatshirt and another, like, we tried to throw in some things that were more adultish because a lot of parents were asking for stuff. So we'll get everything in.
Student councils just, they're taking off.
Yeah, that's
They ran an
exciting.
assembly about a week or 2 ago, so they're really taking charge of it. They're doing a great job.
My council member loved it. And let's see, Breakfast with Santa is the same day as holidays in Halifax, which is 12/9, and their next meeting is Wednesday, November 15th at 7 p.m. Oh, we just had turkey trot, which is awesome. And thank you to all the volunteers who made hot chocolate and or lemonade.
Yeah, it was so nice out that day.
It was gorgeous.
So,
Got lucky. Wasn't it last year? It kept raining and we had to keep bumping it, I think.
No,
Two years
it's 2 years
ago.
ago.
Okay. Oh,
So I
really
think
bad.
this release, I'm just putting it as early as possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Which
Just
would
moving
slow
back in the
way.
calendar.
So,
Maybe the first day is
Yeah, right. Capital budget?
Well, we could, if you'd like, we can talk about the meeting, the last meeting with the project.
Oh, is it on, do you have it back here?
Yes.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Either way, okay. Okay. What do you think?
The cameras are in process and will be done soon.
Oh, awesome.
Yep, it's great. Thank you to the town for supporting that.
Admin review, and so we, that,
Next meeting scheduled for December, I think.
yes, yes, that was kind of, yep, trying to figure out. So, when we met, we did reorganization. The new chair is Michael Anton, I think he's up here. He's, on the Plimpton School Committee. We were presented with the superintendent's goals for 4 years? 1 year? Oh, okay. So we went over those. We talked about the superintendent evaluation that we do every year as a school committee. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the goals and the evaluation forms will be sent to everyone on February 28th and they're due back on March 26th.
We already have all the goals and the form. And then it's just something we can review as we have meetings and take notes if we so chose. Early January, we will resend them out, and they will be due back.
I got this one email from Lisa. So
Yeah,
maybe
I
that was
think it
an
is.
older one.
I think the 26th is when they will be due, because we like to try to get everything in before school committee members who are renewing their 3 years.
Right, all right.
Right.
Okay. And, okay, so we're meeting again in December, I wrote January, so I guess I'm wrong.
Pretty sure it's December.
And there are 2 shared cost contracts that are up for review, one being Mrs. Blackwood's and the other being Marie Grable, the special education director.
Yes.
So that's what happened at that meeting. So we'll have another one, we'll update everybody on this time. And Union 31, that was an additional.
So there will be one.
Yeah, okay.
So there won't be one, but we have a budget.
Okay. Mr. Beaudry, you're up.
So just to start with, after the storm on Monday and Tuesday, we actually fared pretty well. We didn't really lose power at all here. The only thing that we did was internet and phones temporarily, but Steve Pello, our tech director, he got them up and running. So we were in pretty decent shape here. A few minor, leaks here and there, but they were not from the roof. It was more from, I think, maybe some of the windows in this room here, but they're very minor. So we actually fared pretty well. And the cleanup, the grounds cleanup, there was a few branches that were down, but all in all, we were in pretty decent shape. So enrollment is staying steady at 597 students. I think it's pretty much similar to what we had last month. On Tuesday, October 10th, after Columbus Day, we had the district in service professional development. That was headed up by our professional development committee and Jill Prue. We had a great speaker that kicked off the day at the high school. I don't want to say anything, but
You're not.
and the focus was around high expectations teaching, where we had breakout sessions by grade levels, and then we had a fantastic afternoon session, which included some therapy dogs, there was a nature walk, there was Zoodle? Zentangle. It was a Z. But that was a great part to close out the day. So a lot of the staff really kind of enjoyed that, close out to the health and wellness part of it. And there were other activities, but those were some of the highlights of it. But it was a pretty good day, all in all. parent-teacher conferences we had on October 19th. It was the first time we were a little nervous to start. We had rolled out Pick a Time, which is an online conferencing system that we had not used. I don't think any of the elementary schools have used before, but a lot of surrounding towns started using the online scheduling service. And I know the high school and middle school used it. So we rolled the dice and we went for it, and it was great. It was super easy for teachers to set up. Parents, I think, really enjoyed the ease of it. There are obviously some glitches in terms of, scheduling and having teachers to be able to have some break time that they can kind of schedule in and work out the online system. But all in all, it was a great event. Just in terms of the scheduling piece was so much easier, and just the feedback. It was packed house again.
I heard from one mom, she has twins in the same classroom, and that was you can't pick 2 times for the same teacher. So that she had an issue with that. She called the teacher and to get all worked out. But maybe that's something to look into for the future.
That was definitely one of the glitches.
Yeah.
I feel like it was the twin factor. There was one
Yeah.
other glitch that we weren't quite sure how to.
Right.
You know,
My twins are second teachers, so it worked out fine, like any
Right.
siblings, so I was able to.
And anything like that, we would just call the office.
Yeah, but like.
We'll figure it out. Either
Yeah.
Ellen.
I think the teacher was like, how do I do this? And I think they worked it out. But,
Right.
yeah.
So we were good, but all in all, I think it worked out really well.
Good.
So and I think it was much easier for teachers to just schedule it. The system before was just took a little bit longer. The PTO Howland Social on Friday, October 27th.
I forgot to mention.
Oh my God.
Do you want? I heard it was fantastic.
It was great. I think it was like all-time record attendance. There was a line.
The line out the door, I don't even know what to say
Which
about it.
I cannot even remember.
Don't tell the fire chief.
Yeah.
So they had to sell so many more tickets at the door,
Yeah.
correct? It was,
Yeah.
it just was a huge, huge turnout. I mean, I don't know what was going on. Maybe it was a quiet night in town, but it was packed, and they sold out of the food. The tickets at the door. It was a great night. So thank you to the PTO and all that, and played a factor in that. Following up, and the 19th annual turkey trot was on Friday the 3rd. Mr. Luisi had planned another great day. The weather was perfect. Again, huge turnout. So thank you to Mr. Luisi and company for planning the event. Israel Farms for helping out with apples and such, and BTL for hot chocolate. And what's that?
Walmart.
Is it Walmart? Waters. So, thank you to everybody chipping in and helping out with that. The roof project, we'll start with that. Is that all right?
Go for it, please.
The roof project, we're winding down. We're pretty much as dry as can be inside. The only thing that they're doing now is basically the grounds. They're just trying to clean up. They're going to be putting loom in on Thursday because of the trucks that have been around the campus and just cleaning up. They did the front of the building. They had to dig into the drywall out there, so they did that last week, Thursday and Friday, so they could tap into the Holmes Library and then the front of our building, and then 105 is flat roof, so they just tied into that. So that seems to be all set. But as far as I know, there may be a couple more downspouts they might have to tie in, but for the most part,
Is the flat roof complete now?
it is.
Because there's some tape up there.
They're just doing some cleanup, just like they called it, the bullet list. So they're coming back and they're gonna go through with us and our guys and make sure, let's just check off the list of everything that we see. But Cape Way's been fantastic, and Vertex is still here, little office in the front.
And they'll come out and have the people who have the shingles to come out and do the inspections to get the warranty. So I think that'll be scheduled within the next couple of weeks.
How long's the warranty?
30 or 25.
There's different warranties on different parts. There's warranties on shingles, and there's warranties on the flat roof. I The shingles are definitely have a longer lifespan than the flat roof, but
Right.
it's definitely in the nuts there. And after we had our roof meeting last week, we followed it up with the initial, or let's make it the second or third conversation about the windows, doors, siding, and the fire suppression. So we are in the beginning phases of that, just kind of planning that out and seeing how that's going to roll out. So it was a packed house over at Town Hall. That included the building inspector, Joy was there, facilities director was there, fire chief was there, the architect. So we were all just talking, how is this really going to roll out? Because the plan is as soon as school ends this year, and by the time it begins for next year, the building is going to be total, shut down so that they can get all of these projects planned out, completed in the time frame. So the fire suppression is going to go on, right from the get-go, and simultaneously they want to make sure that they can do the windows, doors, and siding at the same time. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve and just making sure that we're planning and making sure that all is well and everyone's on the same page. So that's going to be, I think the biggest component to that is everyone being on board with how we're planning that, how we're going to continue to function here in the building, and how to get 2 major jobs completed in the basic 10-week time frame, and allow teachers to have time to get back in the building. So,
The plan is to go out to bid in January for them, so that hopefully we'll get good prices. To Kane's point, we're going to get started as soon as school ends, and I've already put in the request for no more snow days. So we're all set on that. We're all done with that stuff.
Holidays.
Yes, right, and now but they're almost done. I think they're at like between 85 to 90% completion for the bid, so they're working their way through the expectations for that. So we got a great team. It's good news. So the architects and the project manager have really been superb, I think. Really did a great job communicating. So.
and it's familiar faces. So
Yes.
we're not having to reinvent the wheel, because we can get all the players in terms of when we were working with the roof, it's the same architect. So it really is good. So it's been great to kind of answer the questions, go through drawings, and answer questions from the fire chief, and from Joy and I, and then from Matt Turkey, the custodian. So they're getting, bombarded with questions from all over the place, where each of us has our own, point of view or ideas to approach it. So it is kind of neat. So they're able to kind of field those questions from all those questions.
And again, just for the community's awareness, we will not have any programs here next summer again. The building will not be accessible. So Title I and the special education summer programs will be housed at Denton again. So I think Pete's sort of accepting the fact that he has air conditioning and may never have those programs. It was very popular there, and we won't be able to have any other programs in the building, basketball, anything.
So
So everything's
This is right.
really off.
Dick Steele knows, is aware of that whole setup. And then we've typically done art and drama here, but last summer we didn't do it. So I mean,
Yeah, I think they
art was
did.
at Town Hall, and I think drama was too.
Yes.
On stage, I think it was.
Yeah, on stage,
On stage
yeah.
was over there
They
as
did
well.
it at Town Hall.
Town Hall.
Oh, that's such a great one.
So I mean, Bob Niffin's been doing it for how many years? So he.
He probably knows where they are.
I just
I know.
He was on the school committee,
Yeah.
years and years and years ago, so he may have.
We'll do some
We'll do some
research.
research, we'll find out.
That's, Joy and I were talking about that today.
Earlier, his name came up too.
Complete senior.
Yeah.
I can mention it to Bob, he's the organist at the church that I attend, so
Yeah.
I'll ask him if he has any idea about it.
Somebody will.
Somebody will.
We'll find out some answers. So we're excited about that. So we're moving forward with it. And, it'll be fantastic. We're excited. And water testing results came back. We tested, had our water tested maybe mid to late September, just the water levels. So Matt Durkee and the water department have set up this water flushing because we've never flushed the pipes before. So we now have a system in place where we flush the pipes every so often throughout the school year and throughout the summertime. So we're happy to report that all the results are well within levels. So if you want to see, you pass those around if you have any inclination to.
Do we have to be worried about the water bill? How much flushing are we doing?
I didn't count how many flushes, but I know that it was because the pipe, no one's here in the summertime, and I think typically when they have done the testing, it's like they walk in September and like, oh, we're gonna test the water, but the water's been sitting in the pipes since June. So I think right now, like anyone would do in their own homes, like you gotta flush the system and keep the water running.
So you didn't fill a pool or?
No, so we're just doing it more routine, and even on vacations. You know, Matt has a system set up that he's doing it on a regular basis. He keeps reports, and you know, so when they come in and test, and we've got everything. So
Great.
check it out there. And November's relatively quiet. We have Wednesday, November 8th is picture retakes. We have November 9th is post office assembly. So this is, somebody had contacted me from the post office and said that they were so amazed at the student artwork that was at the post office. I mean, you guys have been to the post office, right? It's just, it really is fantastic. All the artwork that they have. So he called us and said it's I'll send it to you. It's promoting student artwork at the post, it's something along those lines. So he wants to come in and recognize, something for the post office. And they said that they would do a little minor assembly for our kids. It's
For the whole school?
yes, yeah, it's kind of neat. So I'll send you the information. He's been calling me. He's like, come on, I just want to come in and just promote it and talk about it.
He loves that
Very excited about that.
He really is. So, right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
It's always good when the community gets involved.
it is.
Yeah.
He's been so excited. It just called me randomly because he was in there. He's like the representative for the East Coast. He saw the artwork in the post office. So I gotta go.
That's good.
Is that Mr. Tui who does that? Or he used to do it, right?
He used to do, he had something to do with the artwork, but I
He
think
might know where that comes from.
you're right, probably would be a good resource. So I know he still, stays in connection with a lot of users, so we can reach out to him. Friday, November 10th is recognizing no school for Veterans Day. 15th is the PTO meeting. 22nd, we have an early release. 12 p.m. for Thanksgiving recess.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's very exciting. We have our financial tonight. The good news is it's nothing dramatic that's going on in our financial. I'm just going to bring a couple of items to your attention. Page 1 is the summary version. If you flip over that, is page 1 of the detail. And near the top of the page, you see a deficit of $104.54. Those are our dues that we pay to Mass Association of School Committees. And that's based, they send us one invoice to the district and we divide it based on enrollment. So the dues went up just a little bit, so I didn't budget quite enough for their increase of these, so that's what the deficit is for. There'll be nothing else going through there the rest of the year. The next item I want to bring to your attention is about 2/3 of the way down the same page, under the teaching services section, is a deficit of $899. One of the things that we had started last year was the STAR assessment tool, and we budgeted a little tight for that. So we're going to go a little bigger factor next year for changes in the numbers of students, and it wasn't the program that caused the changes in the numbers of students, the assessments that we had to purchase. And then one more thing that I did want to bring to your attention, just so it doesn't alarm anybody, on page 3 of the detail on special education, bottom of the page under special ed tuition, you'll see there are some deficits there, but don't get alarmed. When we budget for that, we budget under one lump sum. It's a total of all the tuitions less the circuit breaker reimbursement. As we're spending it though, we're actually spending it on each account that applies to it. There's a lot of reporting that we have to do that's based on the type of placement the student has. If it's in a public school, if it's in a residential program or a private school. So we're breaking that down now as we're actually paying the invoices so that as we go forward, we'll always have that detail of information for our reporting. But the category as a whole still has a surplus of $127,000. So we're always working on to see where that number's going to fall. That's where we are right now. That's the best information at the moment. And then on the very last page is our out-of-district vocational placements. We had budgeted for 7 students, and 7 students went out-of-district placements. So we're expecting a surplus of just under $4,000 if everything stays the way it is right now. It's all tuitions and all transportation for those students. That's it. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I believe you have in your packet a November update, and the first item would be the release of our MCAS data. And so MCAS data and presentations have been sent to the principals. And tonight I will go over some of the Halifax data with you. The principals have been asked to review the school and grade level data with their staff, and that has been going on. During the week of October 16th through 20th, the Silver Lake community was united in their support of those who have or had breast cancer. And a fund was established and a $1,000 check was sent to the data from South Shore Hospital Breast Cancer Center. And so I just wanted to thank staff for including me in that. I was able to participate in the kickball game. Superintendent Blackwood, nice asset. It was my first one. So. The Wellness Committee met in October. We reviewed the screening, brief intervention, and referral for treatment. If you recall, that's the new tool from the state that takes place in middle school and high school. The team also talked about the need to recruit additional substitute nurses, the success of the current morning breakfast program, and the team would like to examine whether or not it's possible for us to expand breakfast opportunities in other schools and at the middle and high school as well. The Culinary Arts Department had a CTE dinner on November 19th, so thank you to the Culinary Arts Department and Elliott Glass for that wonderful, delicious meal that was followed by the meeting. And then the October Professional Development Survey results were shared with the Professional Development Committee, and we're going to review those results next Monday, and we're going to consider that feedback as we plan our professional development for February. I was able to attend the Title IIA and Title III conference on October 23rd. And last Thursday, Superintendent Blackwood and Jamie Vitonis all participated in the MAS conference, and we presented the Planning for Success plan, and in particular focusing on how it was aligned with some of the state's tools, but also how it's being implemented here with the focus on social emotional learning and some of the professional development that is taking place. And so now we'll switch over to MCAS. And the first few slides hopefully will primarily review, although some new twists on an old theme. So the first slide really is the state's summary of what is the next generation MCAS. As you know, students in grades 3 through 8 this year took the next generation MCAS last school year. This new version focuses on critical thinking, application, and it will eventually replace the older legacy MCAS in grades 3 through 10. So the state, as you know, has been moving towards computer-based testing and phasing in computer-based testing by grade level. a spring 2019, all tests in grade 3 through 8, grades 10 ELA and math will all be computer-based, and the superintendent and I participated in a conference call. And one of the questions we asked was about science, and the hope is that science will be ready by 2020 as a computer-based test. So in Halifax, students took the next generation MCAS in English Language Arts and Math in grades 3 through 8. In terms of reporting, next slide. 2017 results will serve as the baseline for target setting. So that's important for us to remember. There really is no true comparison to these scores. So they're kind of standalone scores that can give us some insights, but really aren't as comparative as they have been in previous years. Next slide, please. So the state has provided us with some snapshots of what achievement levels will look like, parent reports will look like, and has also provided us with the aggregate results for schools, district, and the state. So some of these things will be familiar, and some of these things will be new. So the first new item is the difference between the legacy MCAS achievement levels and now the next generation MCAS levels. And so not only are the descriptors different, but if you'll notice in red, you'll see the emphasis on parents, students, and teachers, schools working together to improve scores. So when you see partially meeting expectations and not meeting expectations, those items in red, really encouraging parents to contact the school if their student is not performing at the meeting or exceeding expectations level. On the next slide, here is an illustration of the standard setting across all grade levels, with approximately 50% at the meeting or exceeding level, the orange and green, or the gold, depending upon it's kind of a light orange and green. If you'll notice, only 50% are set to be at meeting or exceeding. That's different from years past. What you'll also notice is the consistency across the grade levels, and that's because the standards were set at the same time. And that was intentional. So what the impact is going to be, go to the next slide, is that it is very possible that a student who last year had scored proficient may now be in a category where their category is partially meeting or not meeting expectations because of the new standard setting, and that's very possible. The results do not mean that the students learned less. It just means that the MCAS is measured in a different way, and it's actually more rigorous. And 2017 is a baseline year, so we expect to see some changes next year when we look at these results as well. So, as I mentioned, the standard setting process was made up of panels of educators at the same time, and that's what led to the standardized results. The next slide gives you a sample report for a student of what a parent would see and receive in a typical score report. And so you see the reporting categories, but you also see the individual test questions on a student score report. The state also provided some explanation as to why students may not score the same. And again, the new standards are more rigorous. And secondly, they emphasize that these results should not be compared to the previous year's score because it is a different test. An interesting new slide that the state put out this year, which is new, is really the emphasis on barriers to learning and the need for us to work together to overcome some of the barriers to learning, such as poverty, cultural competency, disproportionate and excessive student suspensions, homelessness, and making schools safe for vulnerable students. In terms of accountability reporting, you are not going to see a school percentile this year because they're not calculated for schools that administer the next generation MCAS assessments in grade 3 through 8. And that is in part because you will not see, one, an annual PPI on the next slide. And you will not see a cumulative progress performance index either. So remember, the CPI was actually generated through 4 years of PPI scores. So for that reason, you're not going to see any of that kind of data this year. What you will see on the next slide is our accountability and assistance level rated as no level. And they do give you kind of a summary of whether or not you had enough student participation, and whether you met the target in each of your categories for ELA, math, and science, but also broken down by subgroup categories. And remember, we only have a subgroup category if we have 20 or more students who meet that definition of the subgroup. So that's why you see some areas of the chart that are just blank. So Halifax met all of their participation rate targets. So the following are results presented in a very familiar fashion. You're probably familiar with these bar charts from the past. Here you'll see Halifax ELA grade 3, and you'll see that Halifax is outperforming the state at 48%, meeting or exceeding expectations. The next one, Halifax math grade 3, outperforming the state. Halifax at 61%, meeting or exceeding state expectations. Halifax ELA grade 4, 57%, meeting or exceeding expectations at 57%. Halifax math grade 4, meeting or exceeding state expectations at 69%. Halifax ELA grade 5, meeting or exceeding expectations. Halifax at 41%. A little bit lower than the state. You'll see that Halifax has fewer who are actually not meeting, but they have more who are partially meeting. So if you look at that. But it's not to be concerned, because when I talk to you about growth, you'll see nice, strong, healthy growth. So, and that's something to keep an eye on. Is making sure that there's that nice, strong growth for students. Halifax math grade 5, Halifax outperforming the state at 55%, meeting or exceeding expectations. Halifax science grade 5, 51%, meeting or exceeding state expectations. And then grade 6 coming on very strong in both categories. ELA, meeting or exceeding expectations, 59%, outperforming the state. Halifax math grade 6, meeting or exceeding expectations at 75%. So I'd like to see those nice strong blue towers. So the state is providing us with growth percentiles for ELA and math. And so I've provided you here with the definition just as a reminder. It's a measure of a student's progress that compares changes in a student's MCAS scores to changes in scores of other students with similar achievement profiles. So if they scored similar on last year's test, we would be comparing them with how they scored on this year's test. So they'd be compared with like scoring students across the state. An on-target SGP is in the range of about 51 to 59. And so in the next chart, you'll see ELA grades 3 through 6, the percentages meeting and exceeding expectations, which we just went over. The average student score is listed there for you. You can see the number of students who took the assessment. But what I really wanted to highlight on this chart is the median student growth percentile, which you can see there are nice strong growth scores right across. Grade 4 at 57, grade 5 at 50, and grade 6 at 66. So very strong growth scores across. And a similar pattern here in math. Again, you see the percentages of meeting or exceeding expectations, very strong percentages across. And then you see a median student growth percentile of 80.5% in math in grade 4, and a 73.5 SGP in grade 6. Math in grade 5 dips a little at 46.5, but again, it's still considered moderate growth. So you're still seeing positive growth in grade 5. So the next steps, what we have asked our school leaders and grade level teams to do is to use the data, the very specific item analysis type of data, to help them to inform their practice, to differentiate instruction for students, and to provide interventions for students who need additional support. Our professional development efforts, as you know, are going to be focusing on growth mindset strategies and setting high expectations for all students. We're also going to be reviewing our district curriculum accommodation plan, reviewing the process and the procedures to help provide interventions across all of our schools for students in need. The strategies that we'll use in particular are our grade level data teams to look at student scores and student needs, and to look at alignment in terms of potential areas where we might need to focus our efforts, and the alignment of curriculum as needed.
Question.
Sure.
I don't get how you get student growth percentile when it's early in the test.
So they use, again, this is a little bit more statistical than we have materials for, but what they use is a procedure known as equity percentile ranking to try to compare. And what I can do is I can provide you with the additional information on that. But because it's a comparison of students who scored like them last year, which hasn't changed because last year's.
They do score similarly with the old test.
Yeah.
And now you're.
So we would expect to see them we're going to see if they score similarly on this test, even though it's a different test.
Some kids do better even though the test is different.
I would think you would begin to see some fluctuations, absolutely. I think this is just the best that they can do in terms of trying to bridge the changes.
Next year it'll be actually.
You'll see. So I think you're.
I think that's why the results look so low.
Yeah.
We're bound to see some changes next year, and some changes we may be surprised by. Some changes, you might see actual, maybe relatively consistent. What we hope to see is continued improvement. That's always the ideal. But it should be interesting to see once we have multiple years of data what that begins to look like. Because like I said, it really is. It's not as meaningful because we just have one data point. And I think we're doing the best we can to try to compare without really equating the two. I think it's the best way to describe what's going on.
And when do the teachers get the list of what other students so they can help apply with all of their kids this year?
That's available to teachers, and that's what's currently going on with grade level data teams and
So
across
it's helping
schools.
now.
Mhm.
That everything else seems to be pushed back.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate that when the results come out later, ideally we'll get these results sooner. That's always been the hope with computer-based testing.
Is this just because it's the first year? Because if it's computer-based, you think it would be faster than what it used to be?
You would, that was the original intent, but remember they're also, they're establishing cut scores and things like that, so that the first few years of the test, I don't anticipate we're going to get these much earlier next year. But we could be pleasantly surprised.
Late October.
Yeah, that's the latest we've ever
Never got
got.
it.
That's like a month late.
It's
It is.
usually
Yeah.
mid-September. And we got them out to teachers as fast as we could. And we got them out to families as fast as we could. Get them
It
out.
was a quick turnaround.
It was very quick, I mean.
For us anyways, you know. We felt the strain of it because we felt that need to, we have to get these out quickly.
And do parents get to see what the questions are?
So if you go back to that slide.
I see they see like what number was
Yeah.
wrong,
Right.
Like the actual question.
The state is releasing certain questions, but not all, so they can go online and see some questions. And we've also put on our website links for parents, so that if they have questions about the MCAS, they can go to those state sites as well. Some of the test items will be released, but not all. So you wouldn't be able to
It's
see.
the old MCAS.
I was just
It's the same way they did that yesterday.
So they released some, not all.
Exactly.
But it does have a description that you can go to it.
Was that?
Just a link there,
They
it does
give you a
say you
link.
can go
Yeah.
and we'll explain the question, and it is, but it may not give you the actual question itself.
I didn't even notice that when I was reading. I was like, I don't know. Because I'm always curious.
Yeah.
It's a small font.
It is small, very small.
It's the fine print. Any other questions? Yes.
What is the reason you think the fifth grade is consistently lower on everything than the other three grades?
Well, again, you're just, again, without having looked at the item analysis, there could be an alignment issue, it could be a topic that the team had decided was not going to be a focus area. And maybe now, in light of the data review, maybe something that they choose to emphasize. It could be the way certain types of questions were phrased. So sometimes when you look at the released questions, you have groups of teachers saying, oh, this is why the students weren't getting these questions, because when we present it, we always handle it in this particular fashion. So I've been part of conversations where teachers can see the confusers for students. And so once they begin to see that, they can work with their students, they can start to anticipate. Again, it's difficult to say, and I think more importantly than looking at this 1 year set of data, I think it would be more important to look at, to see if it's a trend. If it becomes a trend, I think
In other
that-
words, we have no reason to assume that they're going to have a problem in the sixth grade.
No.
Not at all.
You want my unprofessional, non-educator opinion? Is I found, like, with my own child, that 4th to 5th grade, that transition there is like out of elementary school into like real work now. You know what I mean? Like real quote unquote, like stuff gets
It
hard.
takes them a while to get up to speed.
That was what I found is you're not really like a little kid anymore. You're kind of becoming like big kid, doing big kid work and reading more complicated things and doing math that's more complicated. So that transition can be hard for some kids.
I think that's my son's class, and it's a low enrollment class, and as a whole, they're all very, very great students, so I'm sure it's not a lack of knowledge or education there.
And they also put in the grade that had 3 tests.
Yeah, they do science.
That's a
Although
good
they
point.
do well in
That's
science.
fatigue.
Yeah. And as we've all discussed previously, the test doesn't make or break your kid. No, it doesn't mean anything. It's just data. That's all it is.
There's a wide range of things that could be, and what we want to try to avoid is jumping to any conclusions,
Right.
especially when we only have one data point.
Right, very true, yeah.
Well, how about report cards then? Are report cards in the fifth grade better?
I only know one kid's report card. Fine, so.
Yeah. And the MCAS really isn't used as part of anybody's report card. The teacher.
No, but I mean, as far as their actual grades they're
We tend to see
receiving.
students doing less well in 5th grade on their report cards. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, in a roundabout way, I guess.
I think it
It
depends
would be
on-
sitting down, to say right now offhand, I couldn't give you a good answer, but I think with the teachers and the curriculum coordinator, they've been looking at all these pieces of data and comparing them across the board to see if there is some type of commonality that's sparked something like why is this particular grade dipping a little bit, but or even answering why are certain grades spiking so high, like there is
Like
something to
80%
see there.
growth.
Yeah, in the math.
Right.
That's great.
One thing to keep in mind about the math too is that as a math teacher, we test in April, May, and so we still have the rest of that time to teach the rest of the curriculum. I can't teach a whole year's worth of curriculum about April. So as a team, we have to decide basically we're guessing. What do we think they're gonna ask? What topics do I think I can push off till June? And maybe the 5th grade teachers guessed wrong. You know, it could be something like that. But now that they've released some of the questions, or they've released some of the indicators of what the questions are about, then they might say, you know what, they seem to ask a lot of questions about this topic. We didn't think they would, and we didn't teach it until June, so now we're gonna push it to March. You know, so it could be something easy like that.
So the data analysis is really critical. It can be really helpful to teachers as they look through it, because this is the first, in some cases, maybe the first time that they've seen some of these items.
What grade do our teachers now teach at? What's that?
Third.
Third? You're both third graders? Oh, so you have no opinion on the fifth grade? Just checking, just making sure you know something.
I think it's important to look at the partially meeting. I mean,
Right.
how many of those are like a point away?
Yeah.
Can they swing over? If you look at the high point here, I mean, not meeting expectations, I mean, is really low, which is huge compared to the state. So that partially meeting, I bet if we really dug into those numbers, you'd probably see they're probably like a question or two away.
And the state has a great report, a growth report, where you can hover over, a teacher can look at scores on a particular test, and they can hover over students. They can see where the growth may be particularly strong or particularly low. And what's ideal about that is they can tell right there, they can hover over that dot, and they can find out the names of those students so that they can begin planning interventions for them. So, or seeing if there's commonalities between the students that are in that particular category, to think about ways to address that in the future. So, the state does provide us with some tools, but it does take time to get through the data and to begin thinking about what that means for next year. Unfortunately, it happens. You look at the data after the students are already out of that grade, and so it really helps to inform for the fall.
It's kind of not as important question. Are we calling it next generation MCAS, MCAS 2.0? Is it interchangeable, or is one correct and one other?
So I've heard it referred to as MCAS Next Generation, and I've also heard it referred to as MCAS 2.0, and you'll see some of the slides that I presented here are actually from the Massachusetts Department of Education, and so they have been using the terms interchangeably in their slides. They're being consistent in calling it Next Generation MCAS, and I don't know how intentional that is.
It's kind of confusing for people.
Last year, when we had slides from the state, they were referring to it as MCAS 2.0.
That's why I bring it up. It just seems like they're throwing different names at it.
And I think what they're trying to emphasize and trying to bring in with what they've recreated a test that they believe will be more predictive of college and career readiness as opposed to an achievement level the past 20. It's been 20 years since it's been almost 20 years. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Do we know what the percentage of when it was announced that it was we're either going to do MCAS or PARC, back and forth, hey, let's do this instead of MCAS 2.0, which was going to be both. And Mitchell Chester at the time said it was going to be 70 to 90% PARC. Did they tell you what the percentage?
I don't recall hearing anything about the percentage breakdown. I remember the state withdrawing from the consortium and deciding to do their own test and partnering with Measured Progress and taking elements where they wanted more critical thinking and they wanted more application, but also blending that with, really the state's focus and not.
They didn't give you a number or tell you that it was
No.
partially?
I haven't come across that. It's maybe something we can find out, but I haven't seen it as part of anything that they've released.
Because that was my thing, when they were trying to decide, and they were getting backlash from PARC, and then they said, oh, we're going to do MCAS 2.0, but it's going to be 79% PARC. And I said, wouldn't that be PARC 2.0? And, it just, again, it's part of education.
So I can try to find out. I don't know what I'll be able to find out.
Okay.
Certainly
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for presenting.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, Mrs. Blackwood.
All right. So I just wanted to let you know that I updated the timeline. The reason why I made a change in the timeline was with MCAS coming out so late. We originally thought we'd be able to do the MCAS presentation in October, and I was going to have Marie come and do the special education presentation in November. You may remember I mentioned that, because I think it's really important as we're building our budget. But I thought it would be too much to try to do the special education presentation and MCAS the same night.
Thank you.
So I thought that it would be better served for all of us if we moved the timeline. And so I moved, the only difference in the timeline is I moved Marie's presentation to next month. So Marie will come next month and give her presentation, which will go over the students we currently have and also some ideas going forward to the program for what we build. You may remember last year we added the language-based program on the elementary level. Marie's working currently on some other programs that we're hoping so we can keep more students in district so they can be with their peers. You know, it will be the least restrictive environment for them, and it will also hopefully provide cost savings for the towns while better serving our students. So that's something that we're currently working on. So she'll talk a little bit about that in December, but I just wanted to give you that heads up. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit more about budget priority. Kane and Brian and Matt are working diligently on building their budget currently. Last month I asked you if you had any thoughts on priorities. You mentioned classroom furniture. I remember we had talked about that. Bathroom stalls were discussed. That was a bathroom talk. And we talked about the playground and whether or not there was anything we might be able to do to sort of support the playground. And then the lines was something you asked, and I completely forgot about it until I just saw the snow. We'll have to look at that at our next meeting between us, whether or not when they do the windows with lines. I don't think lines are going to be part of it, I have to be honest with you, but I think it is really a good thought to think about.
Could be an issue if the windows are different size.
It could be. I believe they're hoping for them to be the same
It's the
size.
same opening.
Yeah, I believe that to be true. But I'm not sure how well some of the blinds really could be something to think about.
So this trim work on the inside will remain.
Why? My understanding, I think they would take it off to install it.
Yeah.
The only major difference is that you'll see on the back side of this building, this part of the building is the double hungs. So we're not moving forward with the double hungs that are over here on the ends, and then in the classrooms up top. So we're doing away with, we're recommending doing away with those. Maybe more with a fixed window like you see here, and then on the bottom would have the crankouts, which I think is how every school on the planet is designed. Not with double hungs that you see. They're a terrible nightmare to clean and maintenance wise, and so they had said they should have all been fixed with a small portion of it.
So you're just like in preliminary talks with Matt Durkee about like what his wish list is and things in terms of the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
He always has his list.
He's a great pen guy.
We've got the scissor lift.
We did.
Yes.
So Kane is working on that now, and he'll incorporate some of the ideas that you have. The town has asked us to build a level service budget, so that means any sort of additions we will list separately. So what we'll do is we'll build a budget based on what the needs of the current staff are, not adding any staff, but where we currently are, and to have the basic needs of the building taken care of. And then if we have some thoughts or ideas, or you have some thoughts or ideas that you would like us to list, when Kane does his little overview, the principals report that we have, we'll go into detail there, because that's how it seems to work best for the town.
Yeah.
So we would anticipate doing the same type of thing.
I would say that we definitely should present them with two separate budgets.
Yes.
If it's something that we decide. And if we can speak strongly to the second version, then I think that's great, but I think should definitely give them what they asked for.
And the town was very supportive last year. You might remember we added a special education teacher with a behavior background, and that's been a huge help this year. And so the town has been very supportive when we've advocated, and we've had a good, solid reason to do that. So, again, I just didn't know if you, in the last month, have come up with any other ideas or thoughts or concerns that you have. I have no doubt Kane and Brian and Matt and I will be meeting and we'll spend some quality time together. They will with all the principals. Halifax is the first on the list, and I believe your meeting must be January 2nd. I think it's right into the new year, if I remember right. So we'll be coming right back from that. So we'll try to get that out to you by Christmas, but, and again in December, we'll be talking a little bit more about special education. But we don't anticipate any major curriculum updates. Maybe remember last month, again, just to prepare for budget, I asked Melissa to come in and she shared with you where we were at. There's a possibility at some point the state may come to agree on social studies. I am not holding my breath, but at some point, there may be a new social studies curriculum framework, but it'll take a little time before we'll really be making some changes around that. But right now, we're actually in really good shape with textbooks, so I'm thrilled. The REAP grant we have again, so we'll be doing some more upgrades with technology, and I'm not anticipating, hopefully, that it will be a difficult budget season. Yeah, exactly. So thank you. If you come up, Dave.
About the roof, did he cover?
I think he covered it pretty well. Basically, it's almost done. They couldn't have been more cooperative. They absolutely followed through with everything we asked. They accommodated our schedule. They accommodated our needs. I was thinking of having them come clean my house. I could not believe how quickly they cleaned up that parking lot. I had never seen anyone be able to pick up so quickly. It was amazing. I don't disagree. It was amazing. And really just good solid guys. Yeah.
Is that especially for men? That's what I said.
Yeah. No, they really, they did a great job. When we had that incredible pouring rain, I have to admit, I looked at my phone a few times and just kept praying that please don't wait. Yeah, please, I really wanted anyone to call, but no, I think building, the roof is gorgeous. I think the chimneys in particular, the chimneys are gorgeous. I mean, I never expected, I don't disagree. They're just, yes, so I honestly can't wait till we get the siding and the doors. I think the building is just going to be stunning, so I'm just really thrilled. And again, Matt and Kane and Brian have done a great job keeping the inside of the building. We'll continue to do the painting and some of the other projects that we can do within the budget. I appreciate everything else, so thank you.
Awesome. Well, we've already done our executive session, so just a few days to remember. November 10th is Veterans Day. Well, the 11th is Veterans Day, but it's observed on the 10th, so there's no school that day. It's a Friday, I believe? Yes.
This Friday.
Oh, it's Friday.
Don't take your kids to school.
Can I send them anyway?
See what happens.
The 13th, we have a policy subcommittee meeting. It's going to be exciting. On the 22nd of November is early release. This building is dismissal at noon, no lunch that day. And then that goes into Thanksgiving break, so there's no school on the 23rd and 24th. And December 4th is our next school committee meeting. So I hope you all have a wonderful trip again. Thank you. Motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Say 8:55.